For a lot of you, this will be revelation. For the vast majority of my younger years, of my younger life, I was very reserved, very shy, very timid, and very socially anxious. And for a lot of my life, I thought I was doomed. I thought it was a hurdle, an obstacle that I simply would never be able to overcome. It was a mental obstacle in my mind that I believed, Ken, it's just not for you. This just isn't made for you. You're just not going to be good at public speaking. You're just not going to be that guy. You're not going to be him. Do you understand? And I had that self-fulfilling prophecy, these negative, limiting beliefs, so to speak. Now, it was a famous paragraph that I read in a fantastic book that I read, and apologies, I've forgotten the name. And when I do remember, I'll mention it. I'll mention it in a future video for future reference. And if I do remember between that time, I'll put the link in the description. But essentially, it was the fact that no one is born introverted and no one is born extroverted. This is a scientific fact. Your brain's able to make changes. Now, of course, if your parents are genetically gifted in terms of obviously speaking, they've got the gift of the gab and they're social butterflies, then perhaps that might give you a slight advantage. But the reality is you can train yourself to become extroverted. You can train yourself to be a phenomenal public speaker, a fantastic orator. It is absolutely possible. All it comes down to, a lot of it, is limiting beliefs. But for the vast majority of my life, I was socially anxious and I genuinely thought I was stuck with that issue. I had a severe stutter. For those of you that don't know, I've mentioned this in previous videos. At the age of 4 and 5, I stuttered so badly that my parents sent me to a speech therapist, and it cured it for a decade and a half, which then came back 10 times worse. And those gimmicks and techniques no longer worked, and I had to invest more money into more of an authentic speaker and overcoming it in a more authentic way. But that stuttering stemmed a lot of the fact that I was very socially anxious. I was very timid for absolutely no apparent reason. I've been in social settings, events, public speaking events, bars, pubs, whatever. And I would look at someone and I would just admire the way they speak, the way they articulate themselves in an eloquent manner. They had the gift of the gab, they were fantastic speakers. The limelight was on them, but they never felt the pressure, they never cared. They were cracking jokes left, right, and centre. And I thought, wow, this guy's amazing. And you would always put them on this pedestal. You would always view them as your superior for no reason. Just because someone can speak better than you doesn't mean they're actually better than you. It's a skill that they've enhanced, they've improved over time. I never used to speak like this. My vocabulary was never this good. I struggled through a lot of my life in terms of speaking, in terms of reading, and I get comments all the time saying how much of a great speaker I am. I get that in real life all the time. I've worked in sales for over a year and a half as well, so that's helped massively. But it's all about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. Now that I've given you guys a backstory, I want to make one thing very, very clear. If you feel as though you have a stutter or you're very socially anxious for no reason, you might be outside and your parents say, Richard, can you go tell the stranger where the nearest train station is? We're lost, we don't know where it is, we need to get to the train station. Can you ask a random stranger for the time? Can you ask a random stranger where the local supermarket is? All of a sudden, your heart starts racing, it's beating out of your chest, your palms are getting sweaty, you feel very lightheaded, you're stumbling over your words. It's very normal. Why? Because you're socially anxious. The easiest and biggest cure, and I try to go under it, I try to go around it. The reality is you have to face your fear head on, because that's all it is. It's just a fear. You believe you are not capable. You believe you are not competent. You believe that people will judge you, that people will laugh at you. That's the biggest thing. You're scared of judgment. You're scared of what other people are going to think of you. That's why you're socially anxious, because you want to portray a positive image about yourself. And if you believe that if you talk too much, if you stumble, that people will laugh at you and that no one will take you seriously, no one's going to respect you. That's why you're socially anxious, because you're picturing negative thoughts constantly in your mind. It may not necessarily be a fact that you've had a negative experience in the past. For some people, absolutely, you've had negative trauma that's impacting you. In that case, I do recommend therapy for some of you. I do recommend other techniques and other things. Seek professional help. But for a lot of us guys, it's not even necessarily bad experiences. We've all had bad experiences, but it hasn't been that traumatic. Be honest with yourself. It's not been that traumatic. And you're just making it up in your mind. We're very good. Our brains are very evolved and very good in picturing negative scenarios where we try and avoid that scenario. The reality is it's just a fear, and fear is just an illusion. And the only way to overcome it is you have to face your fear head on. You have to go and try. When I had my severe stutter, I was set out tasks and exercises to go out and ask random strangers for the time and ask strangers where the nearest train station was. That was my first task for the first week and first 2 weeks, because I was so socially awkward, so socially anxious. I couldn't speak properly. I was just skinny. I was very shy. Everything would be awkward. And as the weeks progressed, the challenges got harder, but you have to get the wheels turning. You have to get the momentum going. So the only way to face that fear head on is you have to put yourself in positions where you have to essentially confront your fear. Now, it's probably the answer you didn't want to hear, but I'm sorry to tell you, this is the quickest way to overcome it, and it's the only way. It's exposure therapy. It's a famous term, but for me, it works perfectly. And I know factually, because I know friends of mine have tried it, I know people that have tried it as well. The only way you overcome this is exposure therapy. Exposing yourself to situations and scenarios. It's the only way to overcome this. Where the biggest thing that you fear, you might be in a group of girls, or you might be in a pub, in a social setting. Right, everyone's spoken, you haven't spoken yet. The limelight is on you. All eyes on you. All attention on you. Be very calm, be very reserved. Your first time is not going to be good. But it's that experience, it's getting yourself out there, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. It's the only way you're going to get over your social anxiety. You have to go outside more. You have to. Because that was my other problem as well, especially during the pandemic. And that hit me hard as well, because of course we weren't allowed outside during lockdown. But I was trapped inside of my house, inside of my room for so long. You're not even going outside. Just go outside and order a coffee. If you're that socially anxious, go and talk to a stranger. Ask people questions. You just need to be outside more. You have to see your friends more. You have to socialise more, because being socially anxious is because you're not socialising much. It's like a muscle that needs to be trained. If you don't use it, you lose it. So you have to train that muscle over time. If you don't go to the gym for a long period of time, if you don't do cardio for a long period of time, you're unfit. You haven't got much muscles. Your muscles are, so to speak, weakening. So the only way you get better is if you continuously train it. You have to do it on a repetitive basis. I'm not saying immediately throw yourself in the deep end and do a public speaking event and present in front of 1,000 people. That idea, that experience is going to be very daunting to you, naturally, because you're here. That opportunity, that level is up here. You will get there. Again, it comes down to belief. You have a limiting belief that you can't achieve this. I promise you, you can achieve this. But right now, with your capabilities, you've got work to do and progress to make to get to this level. So you're here. So start with the basics. Ask an old couple. If you're scared of women, which is very normal, because once upon a time I was, and that will be a story time for another time. Ask an old couple or an old lady who's walking her dog and ask her, excuse me, where's the nearest train station? Or sorry to bother you, where's the local supermarket? Very simple questions. You don't even have to say hi, how are you? Or if you're going for a walk, smile and say good morning. If you're that socially anxious, just start small. You have to make these small incremental steps. And as the weeks progress and you get more comfortable, the moment you're comfortable, you have to push yourself again. It's not easy. And if you want the results, you're going to have to push yourself. You can read 1 million books on this. I read 1 million books on social anxiety, on how to overcome social anxiety. And each book said, you can take this step, you can take this tip from it, you can implement this tip, this step and technique, etc. But the reality is, the most progress you're ever going to make is throwing yourself into the deep end and actually doing the exercise. It's taking the action. That's the only way you're going to overcome your social anxiety, is getting out of your room, socializing more, pushing yourself, making yourself more uncomfortable. And as you do it, you're going to start believing, because on a repetitive basis, your subconscious mind won't perceive you as a liar no more. Your brain is going to start to believe you. Your brain is going to trust you. You're instilling this positive belief, this positive loophole, this positive feedback loophole that is very important going forwards. You're building trust in yourself. You're setting goals and you're accomplishing goals, even if they're small. It's about having that positive belief and that mindset of, yes, I can do this. And as the weeks progress, you're only going to get better and better. And for me, that's the only way. I tried to go under it. I tried to go around it. I tried to read loads of books and avoid taking action. It just perpetuates the issue. It just makes it a lot worse. You have to throw yourself in the deep end and trust yourself that you can do it. Because I'm telling you, wholeheartedly, hand on my heart, that every single person watching this video, if you have social anxiety, you can absolutely overcome your social anxiety. You can do it. Because you know why you can do it? Because I did it. The guy that had a stutter, that couldn't even pronounce his name, that had shivers down his spine when he left his house, even just walking down the street. That guy done it. That's how I know you can do it. So smash the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I'll see all of you guys for my next video. Peace.